Friday night, we got our second glimpse at the new Sacramento Kings starting five, and once again, they were impressive. However, it's become crystal clear that a very heavy load is going to fall on the shoulders of those starters, and the Kings' second unit desperately needs to get healthy. You are listening to Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get started with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. My apologies for how late this podcast is getting up. This podcast is going to be up around like 1 a.m. Pacific time. So I don't blame you if you've gone to bed, and maybe you're listening to this during your Saturday. But man, I was covering high school football, had to come back and watch this game. So it took me longer than normal to get one of these podcast episodes out. So I appreciate your patience and I appreciate your support with that. It's preseason for us too here on the Locked On Kings podcast. But we're going to, of course, dive deep into how great the starters looked once again, how much this bench unit is struggling and desperately needs to get healthy. I have some good news regarding a prominent Sacramento Kings bench player, or at least we believe he's going to be a bench player, in Kevin Huerter, and plenty more to get to in this show today. And as always, I want to hear from you, your thoughts on Game 2 of the Kings preseason. The Kings fall to the Golden State Warriors again, so they're now 0-2 in preseason. Not that that matters. What matters is what happens during the games. And what was different, the main difference between this game tonight and the game on Wednesday night in Sacramento, was that the starters played 3 quarters tonight instead of just a half. And over those 3 quarters, once again, they looked really good. Every single Kings starter played minimum 25, most of them right at the cusp of 26, if not slightly over 26 minutes. But all 5 starters right around the same level of playing time. And over those 25 to 26 minutes, they combined for 77 points, shot 26 of 55 from the field. That's 47%. Shot 9 of 24 from three-point range. That's 37%. Now, that number is going to be more important later on when we talk about how poorly the Kings bench shot from three-point range. But 9 of 24 from three is an improvement over how they shot on Wednesday, but still not as good as it could be, which, again, should leave you encouraged that this group can score even better than what they've shown over these 2 games. They've also, once again, they look like they've been playing together for a while. They had 17 assists to just 5 turnovers. So this Kings group, these starters, they're sharing the basketball. All 5 of them finished with double figures. They look comfortable playing together, which is exactly what you want to see out of this unit in preseason. What I really liked about how this game started with this starting unit is they fell behind by double digits early on. In fact, they were down by 11 points with 1:52 to go in the first quarter. I made a note of it. And I think that ended up being the largest lead of the night for the Golden State Warriors. So things were not great early. But instead of waiting for the end of the first quarter to regroup, the Sacramento Kings blitzed for a short run to end that first quarter. Ended up going into the quarter break, only down 4. They were outscored 34-30 in the first quarter. Now, giving up 34 points, not great. It's certainly been a lot worse over the last, feels like forever, in Sacramento Kings history. The Kings have done much worse than giving up 34 points in a quarter. That being said, 34 in the first quarter, that's something that you'd like to see cleaned up, especially when a majority of those minutes were played by your top guys. That being said, the Kings clearly adjusted because over the next 2 quarters that the starters were playing, the Kings held the Warriors to 21 points in the second quarter and 26 points in the third quarter. The Kings built their own lead as high, or as it got up to as much as 12 points. So they swung from 11 points down to 12 points up. And by the time the starters were shut down, were done for the night, at the end of the third quarter, the Sacramento Kings led by 3 points, just like they led by 3 at halftime. And it's funny, you watch how the Kings played, and even with the solid numbers that the starters put up, even with the Kings leading by double-digit points, even with the Kings leading at halftime and at the end of the third quarter before the starters were shut down, even with the Kings coming back from an early deficit, it still did not feel like the Sacramento Kings were playing great. It felt like they were playing fine to good at times, to definitely could be better, right? You could clearly see areas where they could improve, clearly see areas where they could get more comfortable together, and clearly see that their primary bench unit guys were not there, and yet the Kings were still ahead. The Kings were still leading. The Kings were still able to, at the very least, hang around. More importantly, were able to control the game at times, even though they were not playing their best basketball, and it didn't feel like at any point they were playing like particularly well. They had good moments, but there wasn't like too many. There weren't too many stretches in this game watching it back where I was like, oh man, the Kings are in like full control. Oh man, the Kings are, this is how good that they can be, right? It never really felt that way, and yet they were still hanging around and leading for a good portion of the time that the starters were playing. Let's talk about the starters individually. We'll start with DeMar DeRozan. He wasn't perfect tonight. Oh no, he wasn't perfect. DeMar DeRozan missed a shot. I guess he's human after all. He still had 16 points, 6 of 14 from the field, 6 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block. Again, I was told DeMar DeRozan didn't play defense. I was told DeMar DeRozan was horrible on the defensive end. Now, I know steals and blocks aren't the only, there are prominent defensive metric, but they're not the only end-all, be-all of defense. But look, back-to-back games where the guy had a block, the guy is making an impact defensively. Do I think DeMar DeRozan's a lockdown defender by any means? Absolutely not. Did he make defensive mistakes tonight? Sure he did. Everybody on this roster did. That's going to be a consistent problem throughout this season. That being said, he is not this revolving door, terrible, horrible defender that people made him out to be, like the Sacramento Kings were significantly downgrading defensively when they lost Harrison Barnes and replaced him with DeMar DeRozan. The more DeMar plays, and this is going to happen continuously throughout this year, the more DeMar plays, the more the people who talked about DeMar not being good enough and used kind of the low-hanging fruit talking points that they could come up with, the more they're just going to be proven wrong. Time and time and time and time again. And another one of those talking points that they had was, and we've touched on this many times already, DeMar DeRozan's going to negatively impact the development of Keegan Murray. DeMar DeRozan's going to slow down Keegan's development. DeMar DeRozan's going to take shots away from Keegan Murray. Well, hey, guess what? DeRozan did shoot more shots than Keegan. He shot 3 more shots than Keegan. Keegan still had 11 shots tonight. Keegan Murray 17 points, outscored DeMar DeRozan in this game. 5 of 11 from the field. What I love is Keegan Murray went 6 of 8 from the free throw line. 6 of 8. Now that's 75%. The percentage could be better. But Keegan Murray got to the foul line 8 times. That is tremendous. We love that. Keegan Murray getting to the foul line is phenomenal for the Sacramento Kings, and he did a good job trying to attack, going right at the defense, drawing the contact. Keegan Murray was fantastic at getting to the foul line. And you can't tell me that, sure, that comes from the game slowing down and him figuring things out more in year 3. But you can't tell me that DeMar DeRozan, in the time he's gotten to work with DeMar over the last handful of weeks, that hasn't had a positive impact on Keegan learning how to score with the ball on the floor and get to the foul line. Everybody is going to learn from DeMar in that way. By the way, DeMar DeRozan went 3 of 4 from the foul line in tonight's game. Keegan Murray also had 5 steals tonight. Hard to find. There's little notes and little things that I could be like nitpicky about with Keegan Murray, but 17 points, 5 of 11 from the field, 6 of 8 from the foul line, 5 steals, had a couple of assists and rebounds in there as well. If that's the stat line that Keegan Murray's going to give you on most nights, you should be winning games. most nights. Yes, he absolutely can do better. And yes, I promise you he will have nights where he does do better. But that is a very solid stat line for Mr. Keegan Murray, especially when it didn't come at the expense of anybody else out of that starting unit, because everybody ate in that starting unit. Let's talk about De'Aaron Fox. Led the Kings in scoring, 19 points, 6 of 12 from the field. He was shooting lights out from three-point range, 4 of 6 from deep. De'Aaron Fox also had 6 rebounds in this game. It speaks to the emphasis for the Sacramento Kings on everybody crashing the glass. We'll get into the offensive rebounds a little bit later on in the show. But De'Aaron was excellent. Domantas Sabonis, back to his Sabonis ways, 13 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. And even though this is not a good number, I'm happy to see that Domantas Sabonis went 0 of 3 from three-point range. Get him up, big man. I don't care if you're missing him. It's preseason. Get him up. Right, and Sabonis also took a couple of deep mid-range shots too. I think the first bucket of the game for the Kings was a Sabonis deep mid-range shot that Draymond Green gave him. He sagged off of him. Sabonis took it with confidence and drained it from just inside the three-point line. You love to see that from Domas. And then Keon Ellis, the guy that doesn't demand shots or really need shots in that starting unit to be effective, but can get shots and make the most out of them, had 12 points, 4 of 9 shooting from the field, went 3 of 7 from three-point range. The percentage is good. The fact that he's taken 7 threes is a good thing. And once again, he was his pesky defensive stealth too. Keon Ellis also had 2 steals. Again, I could be nitpicky about certain things that these guys did. I could be nitpicky about the Kings starting lineup in general. They are playing well together. 2 games, 2 solid performances from your starting 5. The bench, though, is a different story. The bench has a Band-Aid on it right now with all the injuries, and the blood is seeping through. They need like a gauze wrap or something. The bench is struggling. We'll dive into that here in just a second. Before that, though, I want to let you know that today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Gametime. This is the app that you should be using to buy your tickets from here on out, whether it's tickets to a Kings game, tickets to any sporting event, a massive NFL game at Levi Stadium if you're a Niner fan, or Allegiant Stadium if you're a Raiders fan, or a smaller sporting event, maybe Sacramento Republic FC tickets here in town. If you're a concert person, want to go see a show in a big stadium or in a smaller venue, if you want to go see a theatrical production, go and see a local comedy show. Whatever it is, Gametime has not just the tickets for you, they have the best priced tickets you are going to find anywhere else. They also have a feature called Gametime Picks. It makes getting your tickets even easier than before. It filters through all the fluff, and you don't waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. It only shows you incredible deals on great seats. Speaking of those seats, the closer it gets to the event, the cheaper those seats are going to be. It rewards you for procrastination, or Gametime recognizes that, look, life gets in the way, and sometimes we don't know if we're going to be able to go to a game or not until the day or the night of, right? It happens. And also, Gametime has incredible ticket coverage. So if you do decide to go and then something comes up, Gametime is going to work with you, not against you. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's talk about this bench. First off, we have to note that the most important piece of the Kings bench, and one of the most important pieces of this Kings team, period, Malik Monk, was once again not with the team for personal reasons. Now, this saga has gotten a little bit strange. I'm not going to go over the deep end about it. Basically, Monk, if you remember, Monk left Wednesday's game midway through because of personal reasons. Because of his privacy and things like that. They didn't divulge anything further. We don't really need to know. But after the game, Mike Brown told us we expect him to be at practice the next day. We get to practice, and Malik's not there. And we're told, hey, Malik he's fine because of his privacy. We won't go any further than that. No reason to be concerned. He's okay. And we expect him to be at the game. He's going to play at Golden State on Friday night. We get to Friday night's game, and now he's not there. So the saga is getting a little weird, kind of mixed messaging, but we're still being assured, and I promise you, I trust this. We're being assured that everything's fine. There's no reason to be concerned, no reason to panic, and really that has to be good enough for us, right? If we start getting into a week plus from now, and we're looking at the 24th, and it's opening day of the season, and Malik's still not back, okay, now we can start to be concerned about what in the world is going on. I think that's a pretty extreme circumstance. That's not going to happen. But if we don't see Malik for the rest of the preseason because of this issue, maybe I'll be a little bit concerned about that. More concerned for Malik and his family and what's going on personally. But it's not our business, and we need to be aware, and I'm speaking to myself here just like I'm speaking to everybody. We need to be aware that even though it's important to our basketball team and it's important to the Kings winning, and that therefore is important to us, if Malik is gone and Malik loves being here, loves the team, is as competitive as anybody, and wants to win as much as anybody, I promise you he's not playing hooky or anything like that. If something's going on and Malik is gone, there's a good reason for it, and that needs to be good enough for us. So don't ask me to ask questions. Don't ask me to say, Matt, you should be getting to the bottom of this. What we are told, I will share with you. But we're not going to be the ones knocking on Mike Brown's door, knocking on the Kings media department, or trying to contact Malik and going, hey, tell us what's going on. Because, in my opinion, that's none of our damn business. But we've been assured Malik is fine, and hopefully he will be back soon. Maybe he'll be back Sunday against the Trailblazers. Well, whether it's Monk's absence, and we know how important Malik is to this team, or all the injuries to guys like Kevin Huerter and Jordan McLaughlin and Trey Lyles and Devin Carter, this Kings bench is hurting. Hurting. Now, I do have good news about Kevin Huerter coming for you at the end of the segment, but we got to get through the bad news first. This Kings bench unit tonight was dreadful. 8 of Sacramento's 13 turnovers came from the bench unit. Just going through the plus minuses, I'm not the biggest fan of plus minus as a stat, but it does give you a good idea of which units were successful and which units were not successful. Here was the Kings bench unit. Minus 27, minus 17, plus 7, that was Alex Len, who is solid. Minus 3, minus 9, minus 6. Those are the primary bench players for the Kings tonight. Other than Alex Len, nobody in the positive. And one of them, a couple of them in the negative teens, right? Bench unit really struggled. The Kings bench as a whole scored 29 points. Sacramento's starters scored 77. The bench scored 29. I think at halftime, Sacramento's starters had all but 3 of the Kings' points. I think the Kings had 54 points at halftime as a team, and the starters had 51 of them, right? Kings bench only 29 points on 10 of 38 shooting from the field. That's 26%. 29 points split between 10 guys. And to make it even worse, Boogie Ellis had 11 of them. So that means that 18 points were split amongst 9 guys. Yikes. Now, Mike Brown has shared with us that clearly this team as a whole has enough scoring. What he needs from a lot of the guys that are playing right now and getting primary bench minutes right now because of the injuries, what he needs from those guys is the hustle and the energy and the willingness to do the dirty work and to crash the offensive glass and to give 110% every single play. So keep that in mind when we're looking at the scoring numbers of this bench unit. That being said, didn't look good. The same way the starters look like they're on the same page together, which makes sense. Most of them are NBA veterans. The bench looks discombobulated. The bench looks like a collection of guys that haven't played very well together and are being told what they should do and are trying to implement what they should do and trying to, it almost looks like they're thinking before they're executing, right? It's like, oh, I'm supposed to do this and then I'm supposed to go there instead of just naturally playing, which again is to be expected. But seeing the drop-off between great, like the starters at the top, and this bench unit that primarily consists of end-of-the-roster and two-way guys, because the guys in the middle, the primary rotation guys, are currently unavailable, that it shows you how wide that gap is, right? And how important those middle guys are. The Kings really, really desperately need to get them back. Honestly, looking at the guys who are consistently playing right now or have played over the last 2 games, Alex Len is the only one that you look confident giving real NBA minutes to, right? And that makes sense because he's actually gotten real NBA minutes before. I know Isaac Jones has looked solid at times. Boogie Ellis, 11 points tonight. Boogie Ellis has impressed me at times too. So I could see a scenario where the banged up Kings maybe lean on, especially Jones, maybe lean on Jones for some minutes here and there. But everybody else, not feeling it. Not feeling it. I'm feeling like when McLaughlin and Huerter and Lyles come back with Monk and probably Alex Len, there's a 10-man rotation right there. It ain't going any farther than that, except for like spot minute moments in specific situations. That's what it looks like. It looks like the depth on this team is really hurting. Colby Jones and Mason Jones, they're really struggling. I've shared with you my disappointment with Colby Jones. I don't need to pick on the guy anymore because I know he's working. I know he's trying. Colby Jones has just unfortunately not been what I was hoping that he would be in his second season or coming into his second season so far. And Mason Jones had a phenomenal season with the Stockton Kings last year. Has done a tremendous amount of work on his body. I think he's lost like 40 pounds or something like that since joining the Stockton Kings organization last year, and had a really good summer league. But these first two games, not great. Not shooting the ball great, fouling too much. He is a two-way guy, but he looks like he still has a ways to go himself, at least in these couple of games, small sample size. I do have good news, though. Kevin Huerter. The Kings announced today he has been cleared to return to full contact activities, meaning he can fully participate in practice, and he will begin the true ramp-up process to get him ready to actually play basketball soon. We have no word whatsoever if he will be playing in any of these preseason games. I have to imagine the last preseason game against, I think, the Clippers. I think the Kings would probably like to have him play in that game if they can, at least, so that he doesn't go into the home opener, and that's the first basketball that he's really played since the shoulder injury. But at least now that we've gotten this news and we're still over a week, around 2 weeks away from the start of the season itself, I feel pretty good about the idea that Kevin Huerter is going to be ready to go on opening night. And hopefully we're going to get good news about Jordan McLaughlin here any day too, and he'll be good to go as well. So the reinforcements are coming for Sacramento. But what I thought was interesting, and a lot of you have caught on to this, the Kings injury report lists Kevin Huerter as a forward. Kings forward, Kevin Huerter. Have you got that? Not Kings guard, Kings forward. I think it speaks to what we've been suspecting for a little bit, that the Kings are going to use Kevin Huerter in a bench role. And looking how Keon Ellis has been playing, just remembering back to last season, I at this point I'm sold. Keon Ellis is the starting two guard on this team. That's it. It's not changing. I just don't see a world where Kevin Huerter does anything coming back from this injury over the next couple of weeks where that changes. Keon Ellis is not going to play bad. He does enough outside of just scoring the basketball where he can give you more even if he's not shooting well. And we know Malik Monk's not going anywhere in his six-man role because of how much Mike Brown loves it. So Keon's starting. That means Kevin's coming off the bench. Very anxious to see what that looks like. But thank God Kevin's coming back. And I think Kevin's just going to be thrilled to be able to actually play physical contact basketball again and not the 1 versus nothing stuff he's been doing for months upon months upon months since he had that shoulder injury late last season. Good news. Kevin Huerter is coming back. You love to see it. Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by FanDuel. All NBA season long, FanDuel is going to be the number one place to play. Use that Sacramento Kings knowledge. Use that NBA knowledge. Use your sports knowledge, whatever the sport may be, NFL, MLB, college, whatever. FanDuel is the best place for you to go. It's America's number one sportsbook for a reason. And when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the exact same page where you place your bets. It's all right there in front of you. So you have a feeling while you're watching? Well, now you have the numbers in front of you to help you make a smart decision with what to do with your money and ultimately win money on FanDuel. And here's the good thing. FanDuel's giving you a big head start because all you have to do is put $5 down on anything. Could be a surefire, no doubt about it bet that you're guaranteed to win like 50 cents or $1 or whatever. You could do that. Or you could risk that $5 on a bet that pays out big time because it's probably not going to hit. No matter what, win or lose, you're going to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed as soon as you place that first $5 bet. That's all on FanDuel.com. All right, a couple more notes from Game 2 of the Sacramento Kings preseason before we wrap up. Revisiting some of the tenets or focuses for the Sacramento Kings in training camp. Offensive rebounding. The Kings had 8 offensive rebounds for, I think, 16 second chance points in Game 1. They had 18 offensive rebounds tonight for 21 second chance points. They had 18 second chance opportunities, converted 8 of them. So that number could have even been higher. But 18 offensive boards, you love to see that. And as much as we were kind of bad talking the second unit, like I said, Mike Brown is looking for the energy and the hustle and the guys who are willing to give their all in that second unit. The vast majority of those offensive rebounds came from that second unit. So you love to see that. The Kings are clearly listening and buying in with that area. 2 back-to-back games where they've done a good job on the offensive glass, and it's what kept them in this game and put them in a position where, let's be honest, they should have won this game. Another one, defend without fouling. In Game 1, the Kings did a really good job. They only sent the Warriors to the free throw line 13 times. Well, tonight, the Kings had 32 personal fouls. The Warriors shot 32 of 37 from the foul line. Yeah, sending any team to the free throw line 37 times, that ain't going to cut it. That's not going to get it done. So the Kings' three-point defense got better. Hooray! The Warriors didn't make a record 28 threes tonight. Their three-point percentage was significantly worse tonight than it was on Wednesday. That's good. You were definitely defending more physically, which is what I was asking for. But here was the other side of the spectrum. You were defending too physically. And it resulted in a lot of free throws for the Golden State Warriors. 32 of 37 from the line is rough. Talking about offensive pace, the Kings were much better in transition in tonight's game. They had 26 points in transition, converting 10 of their 15 fast break opportunities into points. You love to see that. And as for the Kings' three-point shooting, it's still struggling. But as a team, they shot 13 of 46 from three-point range, 28%. The bench was 4 of 22. 18% from three-point range for the bench. That's what dragged it down because, again, the Kings starters were, what did I say, 37% from three-point range? I think so. I think that's what I said. 37%, 9 of 24. So that obviously could have been better, but the Kings starters were shooting the ball significantly better than a 28% as a team suggests. Once again, this is great to see in preseason, especially with so many new faces. The Kings did a good job taking care of the basketball. They had only 13 turnovers. That did lead to 17 Warriors points. The Warriors turned the ball over like 24 times or something like that, leading to like 30-plus points for the Sacramento Kings. So it was much better for the Kings in that favor. 13 turnovers is pretty solid. 17 points off those turnovers, that's not great. 13 turnovers, of course you would like to see that number lower. No duh. But 13 you can live with that. And you definitely can live with that with a team of guys who haven't really played together before and are getting used to playing together. So now we turn to Sunday. The Kings have tomorrow to prepare. No idea if the Kings are going to have an off day or not. Regardless, they have tomorrow and then, or today, I guess, when you're listening to this, they have Saturday. And then Sunday, they're in action against the Portland Trailblazers. It'll be their final home preseason game. Then they travel to Utah on Tuesday of next week and then wrap up preseason on Thursday in the brand new Intuit Dome against the Clippers. And then preseason's done. And then we prepare for Kings and Timberwolves. Hopefully we'll get another update on Kevin Huerter and if he's going to be able to play in any of these final preseason games. He's not going to play tomorrow versus the Blazers. He's not. It's not going to happen. I'd be shocked if it happened. Hopefully Malik Monk is back for that game. If I get any information on that, I will fill you in on all of that. We're waiting for an update on Jordan McLaughlin as well. Hopefully that comes very soon. And then I think Trey Lyles, we should get in another week or so an update on him. And hopefully it's more good news in that sense too. So whenever I get that information, of course, I will share that with you here on the Locked On Kings podcast. Couple things before we wrap up. Number one, again, I want to hear from you. Your thoughts on game 2 of the preseason, things you're excited about, things you're panicking about, what you're feeling good about, what you're feeling bad about, whatever. Send it to me. Let me know at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. You can email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com, or leave your thoughts in the YouTube comment section down below. The other thing is, Locked On is doing something new this season. I don't know how much I can share with you yet because it hasn't gotten off the ground, but it's going to be something new that you can subscribe to. Won't cost you anything. Not a single cent. Just like this podcast doesn't cost you anything. It'll be content that comes from the Locked On Podcast Network and content that comes directly from me. So in the coming week or so, once this launches, I think it's going to start the Monday of the opening week of the NBA season. When it begins, I'm going to be asking you to subscribe to this and be a part of this because it's really exciting, and it'll do not just big things for the network. It'll do big things for me and big things for Locked On Kings, and you've been so great for me over the years helping build this thing. Adding this layer to it is only going to make this podcast better and only going to make the network better, and you can be a part of that. So keep an eye out for that. I know I'm being kind of vague and aloof. I don't know how much we can say. It's not anything groundbreaking or big, but it's more Kings-related content for you. It's hopefully going to be something useful and beneficial for you, and of course it'll be beneficial for me and beneficial for the network. And ultimately, all I want to do is provide you with the Kings coverage and content that you deserve, and hopefully this will help us accomplish that goal even more than we already are. Appreciate your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. I'll see you Sunday at the Golden One Center for Kings and Blazers. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.